I'd like to talk to you today about the TilePlus Toolkit version 4 upgrade, which will be out around the end of this year in 2024. This is just a preview of the upgraded Tilemap streaming or chunking system, which is the main change for version 4. You'll see here two Tilemap areas that can be templated. Each one is a multiple of the chunk size, which is set in Tile+Painter. In this example, I'm using a chunk size of 8. This area is 64 by 64. It could be 32 by 32. It could be 512 by 512, 1024 by 1024, whatever you like, as long as it's a multiple of the chunk size. The chunk size can be 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, etc. And that's something you decide for your application. And basically, here's your camera view, as seen by this line. When you run this in play, only the tiles necessary to fill in the camera view plus some padding are used. That's done with the selector, which basically, given a position, says what to load and what to unload. There's a template that gives a list of all the tile fabs and the template assets, which are a whole lot of bundles. One set for each tile map, of which there's 6, as you can see here. And then there's a whole lot of tile fabs, and each tile fab will basically coordinate the loading of 6 bundles. Some of the bundles are empty. For example, there's really nothing on the water tile map in certain areas, but it creates empty ones just as placeholders. They're just little teeny weeny text files. So if we look at the game, I'll show you how this works. Let's get rid of the design scene for a minute because we don't need to see that. First, I'll bring in the actual demo. I'll unload the design scene. And it's pretty simple. There's a grid, 6 tile maps, camera with a camera follower that follows a prefab that gets instantiated when the game starts, and a game controller that has a zone layout component. This has been upgraded to run async. The layout engine runs async, and what that means is that since a lot of the loading and unloading of zones takes place outside the camera view, you can have that happen over time, so your game runs smoother. It's a little complicated to explain, but it really works pretty transparently, and you dial in these values depending on how you set up your game. There's a simple game controller, which I won't really talk about too much. It does have a thing to clear the save files, which I'll do now, and a chunk scene manager. Chunk scene manager basically will load the initial view of tiles around your camera position or whatever position you tell it to, and given a scene index or name. Pretty high level. So let's try this out and see how it works. So you'll notice it's only brought in tiles that are around the camera view, which is this white line. And if we move around, you'll see some prefabs spawn. The way this works is if the prefabs are within the area that's unloaded, they'll be unloaded when the zone is unloaded, but if they happen to be moved out of the area where the zone was, where they started, they don't get unloaded yet. So there's a waypoint. You'll notice if I stop and start, go back to the same waypoint. If I trigger this is a tile that spawns a prefab effect. If I go back and save, because that only happens when you touch a waypoint, you'll notice the treasure chest is gone. You'll also notice here, when we get down to this area and this little building spawns some guys out, that when you go to a point where that particular zone would be unloaded, it stays in position. That's because this zone has been marked immortal, Just a handy feature if you want to have a permanent zone that doesn't disappear as you move around. Also, you can move, a waypoint can transition to another scene. One cool thing you'll notice in this view right here is as we move along, the rule tiles that this shape is composed of will reformat. And you go back to the other scene. It's pretty simple to use. The setup isn't all that complicated, but you can see as we move around, swaps things in and out. So really what this means is you can have a tile world top down, because that's really all this works with at this point, where the tiles swap in and out automatically and state is maintained. There's a number of things in the background that maintain state, and by state I mean state of TilePlus tiles, the tile that does this little spawner, this tile that does the treasure chest, the waypoint tiles. They're all TilePlus tiles which can have private data, and as they're streamed in and out, the private data is restored from a file in the file system. Thanks for watching the demo. I look forward to uploading this to the Unity Asset Store by the end of 2024. Thanks for watching.